Christoph Vogelsang is just this emotionally difficult player to play against because he has no emotions, I believe. He's just a box of poker GTO. And Sam Greenwood finds himself playing in 100K against Christoph Vogelsang at the final table, and it's really hard to figure this guy out.
It was even hard to figure out what you just said.
No, it wasn't.
Sure, it was. Sam Greenwood, of course, also one of the best players in the world, very successful on the high roller circuit, along with Vogelsang, who may be in the top 5
He might,
tournament
yeah.
players. I mean, these guys are legit, and this is at some of the biggest stakes. It's pretty cool. And we got a blind-on-blind matchup between the two of them. This is from, what, some 100K high roller in the EPT?
It's, I think, Monte
like
Carlo
that.
100K high
There
roller.
we go.
And it was suggested by Aaron Alonso on Twitter. If you have a suggestion for the breakdown, tweet at us, include a YouTube link.
Yes, do that, and we might just do your hand on the breakdown like this one. Now, before we get to the hand, we have to thank the guys at Nitrogen Sports Poker who make this video possible. They, of course, have our fantastic poker tournament at the end of every month, where if you use the link in the description of this video, you get access to it. It costs 1/10 of a millibit, and there's 100 millibits guaranteed, which means there's 1,000 buy-ins guaranteed. There's never more than like 75 people playing. It's a great deal. You got to get it on.
Let's talk NFL a little bit, because it's NFL season coming up here. Nitrogen Sports has survivor pools, which is where every week you pick a team to win, just any team that you want, but you only get to pick them once a season. It's a season-long bet that you're making against a bunch of other players. Now, whoever's left at the end gets to win the whole pool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. You got to be strategic. Poker players like strategy, right? Get in there.
Yeah, it goes from free to a Bitcoin buy-in, so you can do it for no money at all. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. Get in there, get you some survivor pool, and get you some poker.
Ace King for Vogelsang in the small blind.
Having an act before you're done stacking your chips, such a great feeling, I assume.
1.8.
Geez, guys, quiet down. Chatty bunch.
It's kind of a problematic spot for Christoph, not because he has a troublesome hand, but because if he raises, he knows he's going to get a lot of folds, because Greenwood has to play tight. But if he limps, then Greenwood's not going to really attack it a lot, because he has to play tight.
So a call and a check. And a queen high flop.
Are you not happy just to raise and take it?
I think that you prefer it over knowing that somebody checks. Yeah, so I think raise and take it's always pretty good.
So this is like worst case scenario for him is
Yeah.
Sam
That's
just
like-
checking.
Yeah, somebody just checking and you miss the flop. That's kind of worst case. I imagine he's going to check call, though, because nobody's going to give him like ace-king here. Or, you know, not often.
And so in this situation, you're just playing that statistic of your opponent is just going to miss the flop 2/3 of the time, and you just have to hope that this is one of those 2/3.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's possible that Christoph Vogelsang, all he wants in life is for people to look at him as a poker player and say, look how balanced that guy is. He's so balanced. I mean, that's his thing, right? He's super GTO, super balanced. That's part of why he limps the ace-king here, we think.
Yeah, like he's got to have hands in his range when he completes from the small blind that he can re-raise, and some of those hands are going to be bluffs, but some of them can't be bluffs. He's also got to have strong hands that he's going with, and ace-king certainly would fall in that category. So I think this is just, sometimes he's going to limp ace-king. He's not always going to limp it, is my guess, unless he's limping 100% of his small blinds, which he might be doing too. It's hard to know. I'm not really paying attention. But if he's raising, some of his small blinds, this is how he stays balanced, much like a teeter-totter.
Much like a teeter-totter.
Or a seesaw.
I imagine he's going to raise some of his ace-kings and limp some of his ace-kings.
Yeah.
And Greenwood is obviously aware of this because 9-deuce is one of the worst hands you can ever have in poker, and he decides not to raise with antes out there and everything. So he must be a bit scared of Vogelsang's level of balance and thinking, well, it's not profitable for me to raise my garbage against this guy because he's too balanced in his small blind limping range.
Yeah, I think that sounds reasonable to me. So they both ultimately see the flop really cheap. That's fine. Vogelsang checks the queen high board. That makes sense. Greenwood bets one blind with absolutely nothing.
Right, and this is a profitable bet, we're sure.
Yeah.
Like, Vogelsang's got plenty of Jack 10, Jack 9, Jack 8 type hands that he's going to have to fold here.
He's got a million. I mean, he's got so many hands that he's just going to give up with right
Yeah.
away. This just is one he absolutely won't for one blind.
No, of course. Now, this is not the flop he was looking for with ace-king, but it's not a scary enough flop that he could ever consider folding ace-king. So he's going to see how this develops.
Yeah, and by the way, Greenwood, even though he bets here and gets called, he can still win the hand later, both by improving and also by bluffing. So it isn't necessarily, it means he's just lost a blind because he bet and got called with the worst hand.
There's a big chance he would have just bet with that because he has such a big stack advantage. So it's not a great scenario for Greenwood.
You think he just gives up here a lot?
Yeah, I think that if you look at like how dry the board is, right? Like every single card that calls the flop, including ace highs even, can pretty safely continue here. A 3 looks better, a 4 is obviously golden, a queen is still really strong, and ace highs have less the fear of something that turned something that beat them. Does check, I like the check.
This event is playing with a shot clock, right?
I was just about to say, even though these guys play similarly and they kind of know what they're going to do, they still think out every single action.
Yeah, this hand taking this long is a little bit silly, but you know, thank God for the shot clock. Or whoever's responsible for that. If Sam bets here, he could still represent a little bit like ace deuce, ace 5, 5 6, 5 7. Those are all hands he would bet on the flop, kind of shut down with, and then could bet the river. Good sizing, close to pot. But he could get. Christoph could be suspicious here, because are you going to really check a queen on the turn or a 4?
Yeah.
Would you value bet a 3 when it hits a 5? Because those hands that I mentioned earlier are also part of the group that Christoph could play, right? Ace 5, ace deuce.
He
Flat
finds a
out.
call.
Nice one.
Christoph Vogelsang.
That was kind of a showy call there by Mr. Vogelsang, I
Yeah.
must say, Mr. Balance. What do we think about all these plays? So I love, first of all, you have to agree with this, certainly, Grant.
You have to.
Surely that Vogelsang checking the river makes a lot of sense, right?
Yes,
Like,
I agree with that.
right, we're hoping it goes check, as Vogelsang. But then Sam does the other thing that's at least reasonable for us, which is he makes a polarizing bet of 175 into 200K. And I like this bet by Sam.
I think it's probably a pretty good bet. Let's go back to the turn and talk about that a little
Okay.
bit, because it goes check on the turn, which is an interesting turn card. It not only makes the middle card pair, so that's a little scary for both players.
Yeah.
That's probably why Sam doesn't continue his bluff here, because Vogelsang's probably got a lot of 4s as played, right?
He has a lot of 4s, and also this is not the kind of card that Vogelsang is going to fold very often on, right? If Vogelsang has a weak queen, even if he has any pair at all, he's just going to hold on when the 4 pairs, right? He's going to assume, like, it's hard for Sam to have trip 4s, so he's going to call a lot.
Right. It also brings a second diamond.
Yes.
So we think if Sam can have a bunch of random air on the flop, he now can have some diamond draws on the turn, right? And the diamond comes in on the river. That's good for him as a story, because he might check back his diamond draws and his straight draws on the turn because the 4 is so scary, because Vogelsang could have a lot of 4s. And like you said, Vogelsang's not going to fold anything that he called on the flop with.
I'm not sure Sam isn't going to bet his diamond draws specifically on the turn that pick up a huge amount of equity from sort of nothing to legit equity on the turn. Often when players pick up significant equity on the turn, they continue their bluffing rather than shut it down.
I agree, but we don't want to just categorically do that.
Right.
And Sam Greenwood is clearly a good player,
That's
and he
fair.
understands that this is not necessarily the best time when you pick up equity, even if he had something like Jack 8 of diamonds himself, because now you need fold equity to bet a draw, right? Like, if you're not getting any fold equity when you bet a draw,
Right.
it's a bad bet. And we only have one card to come, so we need that fold equity even more.
Sure.
So Greenwood, if he had a flush draw, or if he had some sort of gut shot that he was betting on the flop, may in fact check back even though he picked up equity, or even though he just has 6 high or whatever gut shot he has, because he thinks he just can't get it through often enough. So that's why I think the story on the river makes some sense. Now, at this point, Greenwood is not repping a 4 because he's usually going to bet a 4 on the turn, right?
Yeah, usually.
Usually. So he's repping the flush or the straight. The straight feels a little bit more organic. It makes a bit more sense because he would have had the draw on the flop.
Right.
Now, on the river, having the flush is possible because he does have random air, but a little bit less likely. Vogelsang is pretty capped at this point.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Vogelsang, you got to believe, would have bet a queen usually on the river or on the flop or on the turn.
Yeah.
Probably would have bet a queen somewhere most of the time. So Greenwood can sit back and say, this guy just does not have a very strong hand almost ever. That's great. And I can have some strong hands at least. So I like that he's betting really big. Sort of taking aim with his bet the way green, arrow might do. Another green guy. Green guys? Green guys forever, man.
Jesus.
Green man from It's Always Sunny.
Okay, that's better. I like that better than your stupid superhero
Green
references.
man!
Such a better reference than superhero references. All right, so
Green Hornet.
next question, because we think the bet is at least a decent
It's
idea.
reasonable for sure.
Should Vogelsang be calling? Now,
Right.
we talked about how he has pretty weak range here, so you would think ace-king might be relatively high in his distribution, but I would argue the opposite.
I mean, it's not super high, right? I
No.
mean, like, what do we, as Vogelsang, what hands can we have here?
We can have any 3, and
Yes.
we can have 5, 6, and 5, 7, which
Yes.
are all one-pair hands that are higher in our distribution, and that's a lot of combos. A lot of combos, especially if we give ourselves any 3. Right?
We can actually also have pocket pairs, like pocket, sevens,
Yeah, hands
eights,
like that.
nines. Because if we limped with ace-king, we can have things below queens. We can have 2 jacks even here, pretty reasonably, right?
Yeah, so that's a lot of hands that are better than ace-king, and we don't have a lot that are worse because, I mean, maybe we have a few worse ace highs. Maybe we show up with ace 10 sometimes.
Yeah, we have some ace wheels. No, actually, we don't anymore, do we?
No, we don't. So we
Yeah.
don't really have that many worse hands at all. Distribution says fold when we're getting nearly a pot-sized bet here. So this has to be an exploitative call from the GTO guy.
Well, there is a few other things going on. Number one, so Sam does choose this really big polarizing sizing. He bets almost pot, which is going to eliminate most queens and maybe all queens from his range. Because if you're betting a queen, you're thinking, what's going to hero me when I bet this big, right? Now, maybe you could be playing some crazy leveling game with Vogelsang here, but usually you're not going to do that, right? Usually you're going to bet less trying to get called by a 3. You're going to bet like, 40% of the pot instead of most of the pot. So there's that in play. The other thing that matters here is Vogelsang does have the king of diamonds. So that blocks some flushes. That helps a little bit. And maybe when Vogelsang is trying to decide between calling with the ace-king or not, the fact that he has a big diamond in his hand makes it easier to say yes to putting the chips in.
That said, 2 gut shots and an open-ender and the flush draw all got there on the river, and
Fair.
they're all at least squarely near Sam Greenwood's range.
That's right.
So I just feel like this is a bit of a spewy call, but maybe it's because he believes Greenwood just has a bunch of random air still, and he feels like he has to go for it.
Yeah.
Clearly he has 9 deuce. Maybe he has a lot.
I mean,
you just have to make a random assignment of how much air does he have combinatorially and go with that, I guess.
Greenwood clearly has some air,
Yeah.
right? So we just don't know how much. Vogelsang's played with Greenwood a lot, not just in this tournament. They play together all the time. They're both regulars on the super high roller circuit. They know each other's games. So I'm going to believe that Christoph Vogelsang knows that Greenwood's just going to show up with way too much air here and thus can make this call profitably. I don't know if that's true, but it makes sense to me. And being that he's one of the best players in the world and he knows who Sam Greenwood is, I'm going to say it's probably right.
It's probably right, but absent of that, it's a bad call, right?
Agreed. Vogelsang is just the man, I guess.
Yeah.
Ultimately, he's a boss. He wins big things all the time. Here's another example of winning a huge hand in a big spot. What do you guys think? Do you think ultimately this is a good way to play ace-king? Of course, he's going to be balanced and not always play it this way, but do you like playing it this way even some of the time? Let us know in the comments, and also let us know what you think about the way Sam Greenwood decided to play his 9-deuce offsuit.
Now, he might not be as big of a boss as the guy we're going to point to this hand in, Justin Bonomo. Click right up here to see the same tournament, Justin Bonomo against Christoph Vogelsang. Another hero call by Vogelsang. Different results.
Yeah.
We're a little bit more critical of this one as well. This is actually one that we can't figure out at all. It's a pretty interesting hand.
If you want to hear us critique Christoph Vogelsang and say, we thought it was bad, that's the video for you.
Yeah, that's definitely the video for you. Now, if you want to hear how we came to all of our conclusions about this hand and any other hand, you should definitely subscribe to our podcast, The Breakdown, presented by the Poker Guys. That's where we get super in-depth. We burrow into each little detail of the hand. It's really for people who want to get better at poker and enjoy a laugh or two along the way, Jonathan.
Sign me up, Grant.
Yeah, it sounds
Sign me
pretty
up
great,
right
doesn't
now.
it? It's like Cheers, except more poker.
Basically. And if
Yeah.
you like this video, make sure you sign up by subscribing and liking the video.